How's everybody doing? It's Cevan, aka the Monkas. Join with me today is Reed and Tyler, and this is episode 9 of Likely to Dispute.
We've got another team breakdown today. We're going over my team, which should be fun. A little bit of self-glazing for me after I told these guys their team was great. But we're going to start with a question of the day here from Savan. So, Savan, kick us off with the question of the day.
Okay, I got a very interesting one. I pre-planned for this, so I will go first. But my question to you fellas is explain a fantasy football moment, either positive or negative, that you vividly remember where you were, who you were with, which teams were playing, and the fantasy impact that had on you that day. And
What
like I said,
what research did you have to do for this?
you'll see. My answer will make sense. So you guys think I'll go over mine. Mine, week 16, December 23rd, 2018. Packers are on the road playing the Jets in a high-scoring matchup. 6 minutes and 33 seconds left in overtime. Packers ball. They have the Packers ball, first and goal from the 6. Aaron Rodgers scores a rushing touchdown on the play. Holding Brian Bulaga, tackle Iowa. You know what happens that next play in overtime?
What happened?
A touchdown pass to Devontae Adams. And you know why that is very significant?
I've heard.
Because it was my very first championship appearance in a different redraft league that we're all in, playing Robert. And that Brian Bulaga penalty still gets brought up to this day because that single-handedly costed me my very first championship. And that was a meaningful one because I was very, very, very bad at fantasy football when I first started for like 3 years. And then
Chris
I
Hogan,
finally,
shout out.
yep, shout out Chris Hogan, Jordan Howard, the boys. But sure Robert will like to hear that one. But that's my answer for that one.
Just said it keep where it always gets brought up. You're the one that brings up that moment, right? Nobody else is bringing it up except you.
Wait, wait,
It's a
wait. You're
that,
saying that Savon likes to bring up his past fantasy football successes?
It wasn't a success because he lost. He blames that on
Oh,
Brian Bulaga all the time, and
oh,
he
I'm
always tells me
sorry.
he'd have more
I miss.
championships than me if Brian Bulaga didn't have a holding penalty there.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
anyways. All right, Tyler, we'll start with you on this question.
Uh, this might be cheating, but if it is, I guess I'll ask a question. Can it be about a draft or no?
Anything fantasy football related that made a
Okay,
big impact on you.
sure. In 2019, in our redraft league, we had scheduled the draft, and I was the only one who couldn't make the draft at the scheduled time, or so I said. I had a wedding that I was attending that day, and I Reed asked if I could make it work, and of course I said yes, I could make it work. So the draft lined up with about the time of the reception. And so I mid toast, mid father-daughter dance, and I'm not involved in this wedding in any way. I remember I'm just sneaking my phone out, trying to check the board, see if my starred players are still there. I drafted Devontae Adams in the first, Michael Thomas in the second. That was Michael Thomas's really great year. And I was getting some pretty nasty side eyes from my ex-girlfriend now. Um, but it ended up being a pretty successful season. I was within within a point for the championship that season. So probably my best redraft season, and I didn't even really get to draft in the ideal setting.
Yeah. If I remember right, you lost to Reed by 0.15, correct?
Correct. Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams both had a fumble on a Monday night football game, and that's what did me in.
bold of you to start two Packers players like that, but it almost worked out.
Still doing it, but a la Cardinals.
And Ravens.
Yes.
Mine
All right.
is less glorious than a championship or a draft. I just remember I traded for Antonio Gibson in the 2020 season, his rookie year, early in the year. I think I got him from Tyler actually. And that Thanksgiving Day game versus the Cowboys, he had like 120 yards and 3 touchdowns or something. And I remember I was in Kansas City with my family and we were in the dining room, which has kind of a view of the TV. And like every time I looked over, he was scoring another touchdown. and then he ended up dropping like a 30 burger on Thanksgiving, and I was like, wow, I'm the GOAT. And then he was hurt
Yeah,
like the next 4 weeks, and then I took him the next year, and he sucked. So that wasn't as fun. Sorry, he didn't suck. He just wasn't as good as I was hoping he would be. But that game when the Cowboys were wearing their Thanksgiving jerseys, and that was still, I think that was when they were the Washington football team, and he had his yellow sleeve on with the 24 on his helmet, and every time I
nice.
looked over, he was scoring a touchdown. So
That's a
yeah.
good one. I do feel like the Thanksgiving games are easier to remember every year.
Yeah, especially when you have someone like in like a prime time Thanksgiving game,
Hmm.
that's a good feeling. Which will
Yeah,
be me
well,
this year when I have Rasheed and Dak Prescott playing against each other at 3:30 on Thanksgiving Day in Dallas. Here, it'll be fun when the Chiefs are winning by 40 and Dak has to throw the whole game. That'll be good.
yeah, all right. We don't need to talk about the Chiefs or the Cowboys
But
anymore.
he'll
Let's
be on
get
my
on.
bench because Richardson will be starting and Joe Burrow will be starting, so it'll be okay.
Okay, hopefully. Hopefully that's the case for everybody's sake.
That was a good question, Svan. I liked it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, let's get on to this team breakdown on Reed's team. First up, we're getting to the power ranking tier. I have Reed as a favorite. Reed also has himself as a favorite, and Tyler has Reed as a contender. And now, since you are the odd man out, Tyler, I'm going to go ahead and start with you on why you think Reed is a contender and not a favorite.
I was hoping you'd go to me last, so that way you guys don't have to respond to what I'm saying, but I'll
Is that
wear
because
it.
you don't respect your own opinion about my team?
No, no, I do respect my own opinion. I just wanted the last word. The reason I have Reed in contender actually has less to do with his team, as much as it has to do with someone else's team, who you may be able to guess if you look at some of at all the rosters. There's one team that I think's above all pretty clearly in my mind, and it's more so that I think Reed's team is similar to someone like yours, Svan, than it is the team I have in the top spot. So I only have one favorite in my power rank tier, and I'm totally okay with that. There's just a few things that I'd nitpick about Reed's team. It's not like I have him way down the list or anything. So hold your horses.
Very fair, very fair. Reed, why do you have yourself as a favorite?
Basically all the same reasons as Tyler said, except I think I'm a lot closer to this other team. So I still have myself as the number two team overall, but I think my depth is far superior to this other team, and I think the depth is probably a lot more important than the top end. Sorry, it's a lot closer to the importance of the top end than we give it credit for. So, yeah, I think I still have my team at number two, but I think I'm in a good spot.
Yeah, and for me, I think you're right in contention with number one. I flip back and forth between one and two, but I see you guys very similar, very top end. I know the other guy's got the quarterbacks, which are very important in Superflex League, but you both kind of lack depth, in my opinion. But the top end is there for both of you. So yeah, going back on Reed's team from 2024, he finished 7-7, just barely squeaked in the playoffs with that 6 seed. He ended up making it all the way to the championship. Notably, was third in points for. So there's a quick overview of Keep Trade Cut rankings. Very solid team overall. So with that, we're going to get into MVP picks. So Reed and Tyler on the same page with Jamar Chase. I also have Jamar Chase in there, but I have it as the stack, and I'll go first since I'm different. I have the stack of Burrow and Jamar because last year, although they didn't have overall team success, um, they were the team, and with Jamar getting extended, T getting extended, Joe, this is, in my opinion, this could be a 5,000 yard season, which seem is the term very few and far between, something like that. And Jamar Chase just won the Triple Crown and got paid, so might be a little bit of a cop out. I like the stack. So, Reed, we'll get into you. Why is Jamar Chase your MVP?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a super hard case. As you just said, he just won the Triple Crown. In my receiver room, he stands out as the best, which is a strong receiver room, and he's was the wide receiver one last year. It's hard to repeat as wide receiver one, but I will give Savan credit. I love his answer here because their relationship is so closely related that it feels like you can't credit one without the other. But um, Savan put his answer in after mine, so I would probably steal Savan's answer. But I think Jamar Chase is just the best player on my team at a really important position that I value a lot. So.
Yeah, can't go wrong with Jamar Chase. That's also why he's in all three of our MVPs. Tyler Weiss, Jamar Chase, Reed's MVP.
Nothing else really to add. It's the safest, extreme high upside play there is. This will be maybe the consensus 101 in redraft this year. So that should tell you where he's at right now. There, you might not find a better MVP on anyone's teams in the league.
Yeah, very solid. All in agreement there. Let's go to most improved. I have Jake Ferguson. Reed has Josh Downs, and Tyler has Isaiah Davis. Now, these are three different players with three different roles. So, Tyler, why don't we start with you? How is Isaiah Davis going to be Reed's most improved player?
Yeah, I was looking at several players when deciding upon this, and I almost had Isaiah Davis in a different category, maybe droppable even, but Reed just
How is
acquired.
he? How is he on the line of droppable and most
Reed will
Okay,
improved?
we
no,
will get to you later.
no, because I, I mean, I looked at Isaiah a bit more, and I began to like more and more about him. That was just off, not gut feeling, but first, I guess, thoughts. And the more I looked at Isaiah Davis, I really began to like him and like the situation he's in. Braylon Allen kind of started as that backup to Brees last year, and he had a good week or two in there. But Braylon Allen's one of the slower backs in the league, and you saw him really kind of lose that grip as that number two in the backfield late last season. And Isaiah Davis kind of trended in the opposite direction, in a good direction. And with the new head coach in Aaron Glenn, I think Isaiah Davis has a good chance to establish himself as a solid number two in New York. This is only his second year in the league, and in the opportunities he had at the end of last year, he looks solid. So I think there is a bigger opportunity here than there was last year for him. And I think this could be a pretty useful handcuff for Reed.
If
So
I could talk just real quick on the trade I made because he did mention and I traded him for Keaton Mitchell. I echo a lot of the stuff that Tyler said. I think that he has a better chance of becoming not just a handcuff, but potentially a usable piece than Keaton Mitchell does. I mean, they extended both Derrick Henry and Justice Hill. And if Brees has trade rumors, as Tyler said, Braylon Allen not necessarily the most explosive player. So I was a fan of acquiring him for Keaton Mitchell, as I think he has a better chance to be like a truly startable piece in the right situation than Keaton Mitchell was or is, I guess.
awesome. Well, why don't you get right into Josh Downs, your white whale?
My white whale. Yeah. I was really happy to acquire Josh Downs as we talked about already. I just think his role in the Colts offense, if it's going to take a step forward, as I've said before, my belief in Anthony Richardson has not wavered. And if he's going to make an improvement, it's going to be in the short area of the field. And the main beneficiary of that is going to be Josh Downs. I think Josh Downs is a legit talent. He fell to the third round in the NFL draft, but his target per route run was fourth best in all of football. The rate in which he gets targets every time he runs a route is better than everyone except three other players. So when he's on the field and he's running routes, he's elite at getting open. And I think that's going to be a huge success and a huge part of Anthony Richardson getting better. And in the event that he doesn't get better, Daniel Jones is playing for them. Daniel Jones peppered Wan'Dale Robinson with targets last year, and Wan'Dale Robinson is not the same quality of player as Josh Downs. So in either situation, while I prefer one or the over the other, I think both of them are situations in which Josh Downs succeeds, and he has had some health issues in the past, staying on the field. Nothing major, but he's missed a few games in each season. If he's fully healthy this year, I have no doubt that he has 1,000 yard potential here, and I'm a big fan of seeing what he can do this year with the Colts offense.
Awesome stuff on Josh Downs there. For me, I got Jake Ferguson. Reed has been on Jake Ferguson for a couple years. It just hasn't fully got put together. I know in 2023 he was a top 10 tight end, got over 100 targets, 70 receptions, over 700 yards. It's just he's never been able to get those touchdowns, even though he's been a highly uh or he has a bunch of end zone and red zone targets. Last year, Dak got injured. Um, I guess you can kind of throw away last year, but going into this year, they added George Pickens, add some more competition on the outside. I know CD, he's going to be force fed, but just adding a competent, adding another competent receiver should honestly open up more things for Ferguson. And I think this is finally the year that he puts it all together. So, anything got
I,
anybody got anything else on these most improved candidates?
I just, I don't know because last week you kind of pushed back on me hating on George Pickens a bit, and you're saying Jake Ferguson might have more opportunities and George Pickens might have more opportunities, and CD's still gonna get a ton of targets. So I think something's got to give here. I think I one of these three, and I strongly don't think it's CD, is gonna take a hit, and you might be wrong about.
Might be wrong about something. Obviously, it's CD's not going to take the hit. Um, I'm looking at Ferguson from a tight end perspective where you don't need 140 targets to be relevant in fantasy. And I never established George Pickens is going to be a wide receiver one. I just think he'll improve on his average of wide receiver 36. So whether that's receiver 24, that's still an upgrade. Um, yeah,
So,
that's
so are you saying you think Jake Ferguson will have more touchdown opportunities this year? Is that
just
kind
I
of
just think the touchdowns have just never been there for him. He's in a good offense that throws the ball, and Dak is capable of a 4,540 season. So yeah, essentially. We'll get into Jake Ferguson a little
Yeah.
bit more later.
Yeah,
Um, sorry.
if I could just go real quick on Ferguson, I also think that him being the second option is a lot different than him being the third option. Well, I think it might decrease his volume. I do agree. I think it probably increases not his role, but like his ability to function in his role. Because especially with Pickens going, being more of a vertical guy, I
Mhm.
like he's just not he's not the type of tight end where you're like, okay, you can be second on our team in targets and we'll be okay with that. Like he's not,
Exactly.
that type of player. So I think while this might be a hit to his volume in certain games, he's still going to have spike weeks, and I think it opens up more chances for him to catch touchdowns because the offense will just be better. They'll be in the red zone more, where he can function as like a true tight end, like red zone threat. So, yeah, I think
My
he'll
thought.
probably be more volatile, but overall, I like his upside more.
Yeah,
yeah.
my thoughts exactly. So
It's a harder case for me to see, but I can respect it.
I got you. All right, getting into the sleepers. I have Chuba Hubbard. Reed has Kenneth Walker the third. Tyler has rookie Chicago Bears wide receiver number 87, Luther Burden. So Tyler, why don't we start there with you with Luther Burden?
Yeah, Luther Burden, as we've mentioned on this pod a few times, was someone who I had my eyes on heavily at the 201 spot. Reed and I realized that as my draft position was coming up. Obviously, I didn't take him. I didn't even have a pick at 201 once I traded it. Luther, I think, well, I know he was an elite receiver last year and the year before in the SEC, and his I think his athleticism and his skills as a wide receiver are speak a lot to me. I'm not going to act like I've watched all his film or anything like that, but some of the highlights and stats I have seen of him, I'm a big believer in Luther, and I didn't really care where he landed in the draft when I was kind of eyeing him. And the fact that he landed with the Bears is totally fine with me. He's attached to a quarterback that, is poised to blossom, hopefully. And I am not the biggest believer in Rome myself. And so I think there's room in this offense for Luther to potentially work in the slot and make an impact right away in year one. I think just because he went in round two, that shouldn't he shouldn't be dinged for that. I think it might not be right away, but Luther is explosive, and I think he can be a real playmaker on this Bears offense. And I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year we were talking about him as the number two on this offense.
Yeah, Luther Burden got drafted to a very crowded room, but as they say, the cream rises to the top. So we'll see how that shakes out for
They
Luther,
do
but
say
definitely has
that.
a bunch of potential. Reed, we're going to hold on Kenneth Walker because I feel like we're going to have some discourse on that one. So I'll get into Chuba Hubbard real quick. Chuba Hubbard, why is he in a sleeper after having the year he did last year? Well, I will tell you. Chuba Hubbard going into year 5 just got an extension uh, by the Panthers. Finishes RB 14 last year in our league. First time over 1,000 yards, just under 1,200. Double digit touchdowns for the first time. And it showed he has a little bit of receiving volume. Not many yards, but decent amount of catches. Why is he in the sleeper category? Because I feel like if you tell people Chuba Hubbard was RB 14 last year, they either A, wouldn't care, or care to know why, or B, didn't know. Because Chuba Hubbard's, for his whole career, he was a handcuff or a backup. And finally, they drafted Jonathan Brooks to be their guy, and he decided he didn't want his knee anymore. So Chuba Hubbard became the workhorse, and he exceeded in that role. And he's a sleeper this year because I feel like if he wasn't on Reed's team, he'd be someone Reed would be trying to acquire because he's probably at a lower value than he should be. So while I don't expect Chuba to be RB 14, I think he's a perfect RB2 option and with upside. So Reed, any thoughts on Luther or Chuba?
Yeah. I like Tyler's breakdown with Luther. I don't, I part of it's just because of my build, but I don't necessarily need him to be a sleeper this year because I'm not relying on him to score points. But I also can absolutely see the case where the Bears take a player like that who can be effective in a manufactured touch role that by the end of the year, like you said, he could be one of their most dynamic guys with the ball in their hand. And I could see that again, the Bears offense improves, him being electric in the open field. Like I could see that truly being a role for him. And while I'd love that, I can't necessarily say that I would put him as my sleeper because like you said, a lot of players highly paid or young players in the offense there. So we'll see, but I love it. As Tyler said, we've both been Luther Burden fans for a while now, so big fan there. Obviously, I'm a Chuba Hubbard fan. I appreciated you saying that if he wasn't on my team, I'd try to acquire him. It just means I have good player evaluation if you think I'd ID him as a sleeper. So I kind of feel the same thing that with Chuba is that I don't necessarily think he's a sleeper, but I love the player that he is. And obviously, I acquired him for nothing because I traded for him right when Jonathan Brooks was about to come back. So I acquired him for very little, and he's
For Tyler Huntley.
and $5. So don't forget that part. But yes,
Gotcha.
um, I I love what he is, and I think you nail on the head. Like he's a perfect like mid to high end RB2. If he ends up being top 12, great. But I'm not counting on him to be that. I just hope he kind of I don't even expect him to get the same volume as he did last year. Like for most of the year, it was him and Miles Sanders, and Miles Sanders is not on the team anymore for being bad reasons. So now that they signed Rico Dowdle, drafted Trevor Etienne, like I don't expect him to get 25 touches a game anymore, but his season really turned around once their offense started to look competent again. And that started with Andy Dalton starting. And then after Bryce came back and was a different quarterback, he blossomed. So I'm a huge fan of what he is right now. And uh, I don't necessarily think I put him in the sleeper category because I feel like he's in a good spot, but I also feel like his upside is pretty high for a running back who's really only had one truly good year at the position fantasy wise.
Gotcha. Well, let's get right into another running back who also only truly had one good year in Kenneth Walker III. Why is he your sleeper?
Because I feel like everyone's sleeping on him. He's one of the most talented backs in the league as far as his ability to break tackles and break explosive runs. I feel like he the Seahawks offensive line was the worst graded offensive line in all of football last year. And it's easy to kind of forget about that because Charbonnet had a couple of good games towards the end of the year when Walker was hurt. But Walker, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I didn't do that much research, but he is one of the highest broken tackle rates in the league, explosive run rates prior to this year. He's obviously had some health concerns, but I feel like the storm is kind of there. They used their first round pick on a guard. And I feel like the perfect storm is here. Like everybody wants to knock players for being healthy, but or sorry, for lack of health, but I feel like that's not I feel like I know that's not a predictive thing. Like no one was in on Saquon because he couldn't stay healthy, and then suddenly he was healthy. And that type of narrative I think is really overrated. And I'm going to bet on the talent, especially with the new system, outside zone system from Clint Kubiak that he ran in New Orleans and used Kamara a lot last year. So I'm all in on him. I love the value that I got him at. I mean, middle of last year, he was valued on KTC as a top 10 running back. Like he was on his way to being it, and then he got hurt. And you know what? I will take the dip on his value when he's coming off a year where he was a little banged up.
All right. And Tyler, why do you hate Kenneth Walker?
I don't hate Kenneth Walker. I like him. This is a smaller running back who's been injured quite a bit, and you've seen Zach Charbonnet do quite well in his absence, and I think Charbonnet has forced the Seahawks' hand here into a larger role. So I it's I don't hate the player who he like the value he has or anything like that, and I'd be totally fine with him on my team. It's just when I have other positions of need, I was totally fine with trading him. So I'm not a hater, but I'm not like regretting trading him at all, and I'm skeptical about him. Uh, I don't want to say breaking out, but having a superstar season here in his last contract year.
Charbonnet in the games that him and Kenneth Walker played together. I texted this stat to Tyler the other day when he was refusing to trade me Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet had one game last year that he played with Kenneth Walker where he had double-digit touches. The backfield is Kenneth Walker's to lose, and could he lose it? Sure. But I am not of the belief that he is a threat to actually take Kenneth Walker's like a real share of his work this year, especially in a contract year for Walker as well.
Sure,
Yeah,
it's fair enough.
for me, Um, I can see a path to his success, and I can see a path to his
Don't
downfall.
sit on the fence. Be a man. Take a stance.
I Let me see if I can talk myself one way or the other. Um, Games aside, rookie year he missed 2 games. Sophomore year he missed 2 games. Last year he missed 6 games. In total fantasy points, every single year it's gone down. Touchdowns since his rookie year, every single year it's gone down. Last year it was his career high targets and receptions. Yards per carry was well under 4 yards. He's small. He's not old yet. He's only 24. He's got one more year. But I personally think you're a little too high on him. If I had to, I think he's probably valued fine. He's a mid to low end RB2 in my mind, but I can
Oh,
see a path. I can see a path for him to just to tank or to that for that timeshare to actually become a timeshare.
I think
So
we'll talk about my running back room as a whole more, but like I feel like him and Chuba are both in like high end RB2 ranges, but I think Kenneth Walker has a lot better chance to be like a top five running back. But I think Chuba has a lot better chance of, or sorry, but I also think Walker has a better chance of, like you said, tanking. So I think his range of outcomes is a lot higher. But I think hit like of all the players who have never finished in the top 12, I feel like Walker has a great chance to be that guy this year, and with even more upside um, to the top five. But we'll see. Either way, like I said, I'm not saying that I think he's a bona fide RB1, but I think people are sleeping on the upside that he presents this year with the Seahawks.
only time will tell with that one. All right, next up we got our best values, and me and Tyler are aligned here in Jonnu Smith, and Reed has Juwan Jennings. So Reed, let's start with you. Why is Juwan Jennings your best value?
I don't necessarily think straight up he was my best value, but I think it was one of my shrewdest moves of last year where I traded Ricky Pearsall for Juwan Jennings and a second round pick that ended up being the 204. Um, I liked at the time, like I loved Jennings the rest of the season after Ayuk had gotten hurt. Debo was washed. I loved what he was doing in the 49ers offense, and he ended up being really good the rest of the year. And then add in the second round pick, and like I think straight up this year, I'd probably still take Jennings over Pearsall. Like I think Pearsall probably is a chance to carve out a big role, but I love what Jennings already presents right now. So I liked his value. Jonnu, like straight up, yeah. I mean, I got Jonnu off waivers for basically nothing, and then he was a top 5 tight end. So yeah, obviously Jonnu was my perfectly best value. I just wanted to talk about Jennings and how I acquired him because I was happy with that trade. As I
Nice.
also mentioned, you could put Chuba in this as well for that trade that I had for him. So
Yeah, definitely. And Tyler, why is John Smith the best value?
You previously had Johnny Smith, as I'm sure you mentioned. You dropped him foolishly, some might say now. Johnny Smith, this was the number 4 tight end on the year last year, and even myself, I was like, holy shit, I didn't know that. Like I knew he had a great year, but I didn't realize it was that good of a year. This is someone who he performed better than Jalen Waddle did last year. I can't remember, maybe Jalen Waddle was a little bit banged up or whatnot, but Jonnu Smith was the legitimate number 2, sometimes number 1 in this offense, just one way or another. I know Tua didn't play a full year, this and that, but it's at the point where Jonnu Smith is, not a bigger name tight end, but he has been around the league for a while, and he's proved that he can be more than serviceable. I think he's a good tight end. And I think in a year where the Dolphins really need to do something or people start losing their jobs, if Johnny's there and he's getting open, he's still going to get, a good amount of targets, especially in the red zone there. So this is a great value. And Reed kind of lucked into your mishap, Savon. So I'm sure, I don't know if this one is salt in the wound for you or not, but looks like you're a big enough man to put him here as the best value as well.
Yeah, sorry if you heard pickle. Oh, all right, I'm back. Um, yeah, looking back at 2023, that one year he was on the Falcons, when everybody was wondering why Jonnu Smith is having better games than Kyle Pitts, I think 2024 told that story. Um, Being a tight end 4, yeah, I drafted him. I wasn't in on him or anything, but I drafted him at the end, dropped him because the beginning of the year it looked like it was going to be the Tyreek and Waddle show, like everybody thought. Tua gets hurt. John who plays around the line of scrimmage. That offense is just built to it's almost like a quick game where they're just getting the ball out, and John was just always available for whoever was playing quarterback. And Reed did definitely luck into him. It's not salt in the wound because I won a championship. John didn't, and did Reed. So I was cutting my dead weight. Reed wanted my dead weight, and it didn't work for him. So
there's
that's
so
how
many plays
it's
last year where like Jonnu would run like 5 yards and turn around and he'd just be like
yeah.
butt naked open because everybody was on Waddle and Tyreek. Like literally he would run like 5 yards, turn around, catch the ball, run 5 more yards, and then that was like the entire Dolphins offense. That when Tua was out, which wasn't much, and then even when Tua came back, like there were so many plays where nobody was like paying attention to him, and then he'd catch the ball within 10 yards, run about 5 to 10 yards, and then that was his game. And he ended up with a touchdown about half the weeks. So not it was not sexy by any means, but when I desperately needed a tight end, he was my knight in shining armor.
Yeah, I mean, Jonnu, career high in targets by 41, career high in receptions by 38, career high in yards by about 300. So I guess that was his eighth year breakout. I mean, we'll take that.
I honestly, he might be better than Trey McBride, if we're being honest.
He might be, but that was a couple episodes ago. So you could have brought that up then. But then getting into our overrated section, I have Kenneth Walker. Reed, Garrett Wilson, and Tyler with a very questionable, but his opinion, Rashee Rice. So we're gonna save that one for the end. I'll just get Kenneth Walker out of the way. I kind of already touched on it. Um, I've seen a lot of Kenneth Walker discourse this offseason, and it's all been positive, nothing negative on why he's going to break out. And I'm just, hello?
There you go. Now you're back.
Sorry. I'm just not on the side that he's going to be some locked and loaded, top end running back, finishing inside the top 12. I just I can see the path, but I'm just not on that side. So any quibble or we've kind of already touched on Kenneth.
You're entitled to your own opinion.
Yes. All right. Well, what's your opinion on Garrett Wilson?
I like Garrett Wilson. I acquired him in our five-way trade where I traded James Cook in Rome for Garrett Wilson and Kenneth Walker. And I'd take Kenneth Walker over James Cook and I'd take Garrett Wilson over Rome. So it was a no-brainer for me, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm the biggest Garrett Wilson fan. The upside case is clear. Like who else is going to catch passes for them? Like he's been 1,000-yard receiver each of his first 3 years in the league. He's 24 still. Like there's a great chance for upside. I'm just as with every year of his career to this point, worried about efficiency. Justin Fields isn't the best deep ball thrower. So he's going to have to, especially in an offense with Fields at the helm, it's going to be more run heavy. So I just don't really see a world where he comes up as like a top five receiver. So, and I think people probably still value him that way because, he is an incredibly talented player, but I just don't think Justin Fields is the quarterback that has the either the volume or the efficiency to get him there. So yeah, I still think he's like a rock solid, like, you know, mid to high end wide receiver two with clear wide receiver one potential, but I just don't see a true like top five season out of him this year. So, um, yeah, I'm a fan. I just think he's probably a little overrated given that he's a 24-year-old with three straight 1,000-yard seasons. Just a little bit lower on him this year and moving forward until they get a quarterback that is a true passer for him.
Yeah, I like your Garrett Wilson pick here. I almost considered him
You
myself.
should have taken him.
I thought about it. Cevan,
With
were you gonna
what,
say? Go ahead,
yeah,
sorry.
with what Justin did for DJ and Komet that in 2023, you don't if if Garrett Wilson did what DJ Moore did in 2023, and I'll read you
No,
DJ
I'd be
Moore's.
thrilled with that, but DJ
But
Moore,
you said he can't do he Justin
DJ Moore
can't.
was wide receiver eight that year.
I understand, but you said Justin can't do that for a receiver.
Yeah,
You said he can't.
yeah. I said top five potential. So if his
I
ceiling
know
is DJ Moore, which is wide receiver eight, I don't know if Justin Fields is the guy to get him there. Is my point.
what I'm arguing with you about is you said Justin can't do that for Garrett, but he already did it for DJ.
He
That's
didn't.
what
He
I'm
was wide
saying.
receiver eight.
He was wide receiver six,
Okay.
96 for just under 1,409.
Yeah.
You wouldn't take that?
No, I of course I would take that. That would be like a really high end outcome for him. I agree
Okay,
with
so
that.
what I'm arguing is that you said Justin can't do that for him,
I said I
but
don't think Justin Fields is the guy to get him
you
there.
said can't.
Okay, sure. Well, whatever technicality you want to get me on, I don't think that Justin Fields is an efficient enough passer to get him to that point.
Why?
What do you mean, why? Has Justin
You,
Fields ever been a good passer?
I'm s-
At Ohio State.
no, I'm saying he's already done it. It's already happened.
You want to make a bet on
So,
Garrett Wilson this year?
so why can't he do it again is what I'm asking.
Maybe he can. I'm not saying he can't. I'm saying I don't think he will. DJ Moore outperformed his expected fantasy points by a lot that year because he's great after the catch, which isn't a
Yeah,
guarantee. Garrett Wilson's good after the catch, but that's not a guarantee that you're going to massively outperform your expected fantasy points.
which is fair. But Fields is also a good deep ball thrower.
Okay, that's fine.
Very good. All right, let's get to Rashee Rice because this is very controversial. I am not on this side. I'm in love with Rashee Rice. I had a deal on the table for him that I probably should have taken, but
Cevan, I'm gonna give my case, and I need you to tell me at the end if I've even swayed you a little bit, okay?
all right.
So,
And Reed.
let's give a little context here. Reed acquired Rashi Rice from Camden Thornhill this April for a 2026 first rounder, a 2026 third rounder, and a 2025 second rounder. Had a good amount of draft picks there. Some might say an overpay of draft picks there for Rashi Rice. Rashi Rice, he tore his lateral collateral ligament in week 4 of last season He had to undergo surgery and miss the whole rest of the year. Now, I understand that his rehab is going quite well. He's running routes and everything. However, there is a difference between practice routes and real game routes, going full speed, full contact, in-game situations. Okay. Recently, Pat Mahomes has talked about how the offense, he wants to get back to a more explosive offense, a little less dink and dunk. The Chiefs wide receivers also consist of Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, two notable deep downfield threats. Last year, I know small sample size, but Rashi Rice, and this is you can see this watching primetime Chiefs games, had an average depth of target of 5.2. Slant routes, out routes, little screens, you name it. When Pat says he's looking to make the offense a little bit more explosive, a little more downfield, I'm not saying Rashi cannot do that. He can, of course. He's a good enough wide receiver for that. I just think there's also targets who are capable of that skill. And sure, he'll still have his role, for the short to medium downs where he can catch balls. I just think that coming off a big season-ending injury where the offense might be changing a bit, and no, notably Chiefs led in so many games that at many times receivers and Pat were hurt because of that. Pat was outside the top 10 of QBs last year because he just didn't need to throw the ball all that much. And so you have Rashi Rice here, and I'm not saying he's bad. I just don't think that it's an all sunny outlook for me. I think there are pieces here that do concern me. And so I think he is overrated, especially when compared to the price that Reed paid for him.
I'm gonna jump in here. Personally, I think this is about as good of a time as you possibly can buy Rice because I think in a year from now, that second rounder would turn into a first instead of trading him for a future first and a couple mid-round picks. It would be all first. Rasheed Rice is great. The reason he's great for fantasy football is because he catches a lot of passes and he's good after the catch. I understand he hurt his knee. And so while there might be a dip in production this year, especially if Xavier Worthy takes another step and Hollywood's healthy all season, sure, there could be a dip for this season. But and I know this is a 2025 outlook, but personally on Rasheed Rice, he will be the wide receiver one for the NFL's best quarterback for likely the duration or at least the next 3 to 5 years. I get Mahomes said he wants more explosive offense, but at the end of the day, they won 15 or 16 games last year, and his only objective is to win the games by any means possible. So if that means throwing it to Rice on what he's good at to get the first down, that's what it's going to be.
For an average depth of target of 5.2, that's crazy.
Which is completely fine. He was top. I know it was only a few games, but he was a top four wide receiver, I want to say, before he got hurt. And I think adding two deep threats like Hollywood and Worthy only opens up the underneath even more. So if he does come back from his injury healthy, then there's no reason he shouldn't do what he was doing or outproduce his pace from last year.
I want to say one more thing and then let Reed respond. If Rashid has the same injury, season ending, but in the preseason, and you don't have that 3 game sample size where he balled out, I think his stock's lower. And so, in my mind, I don't think it's crazy to say he's overrated when everyone is just like in love with this 3 game sample size that he had. And yeah, it was great, no doubt. But I just, his stock would be lower if this happened in the preseason. And all we had to look at was his 2023 season, which was still good. I just don't think. it his stock should be as inflated as it is based on those 3 weeks.
But while I agree with you that if those 3 weeks didn't happen, it would be lower. I think it was since it did happen and you saw the changing of the guards his rookie year on that back half of his rookie year when he was taking over. It just confirmed what everybody was projecting that he was going to excel in his role and be a very good weapon for Pat. So I know we can play the what if game, but the reality is it did happen and he is injured. And so I think his value is lower than what it should be right now and what it's going to be in the coming years. So Reed, why don't you respond to this one?
First of all, your discourse has been very healthy. I've been appreciated that. And let me say, Tyler, your first argument was incredibly well laid out, and I'm appreciative of the effort you took to defend your controversial position. And
Thank
then
you.
you lost me when you spoke for the second time, when you said if you take out the good games, then he doesn't have any games that were any good.
No, no, no,
If you
that's
take
not
out
what
the
I
three games where
said.
he was elite last year, where he was the wide receiver two in points per game, assuming you take out the game he got injured in the first quarter, if you take out those games, then he hasn't ever actually been good, right? When in reality, that's actually false as well. He was a top 10 wide receiver over his final 6 games because he didn't play in the last week of 2023, his rookie year. He had four top 14 finishes in those 6 weeks in his rookie year, and then add in last year, which was 3 games, where, over then you're talking about a 9 game sample, add in the 2023 playoffs, and you're looking at a guy who was a wide receiver one over the course of 15 games. While I do 100% agree, I overpaid for him. I was well aware of that at the time. I'm well aware of that now, and I agree with your point. I know I overpaid for him, but at the same time, A, get your guys. I believe in him. I wanted him last year. I had a trade on the table during the draft to get him, and I declined it, and then took Jonathan Brooks over him. So I don't want to get into that. It was bad. But when it comes to players you want, I'm happy to pay. And again, my first round pick, ideally, is a late first round pick next year. I traded the 204, which looking at the draft now, I was perfectly fine with. And then a third rounder, which is just a dart throw. So when it comes to the receiving core, as it's very clear that I prefer to build through, I feel like Rasheed is the perfect piece for that. And I agree with Savan that his value, I believe, not that far into the year will be higher than what it is now. Like on KeepTradeCut, he is wide receiver 18 right now. And I feel like that is mighty low for a 25-year-old tied to one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history in an elite PPR role. And, Kelsey probably in his last year this year. So again, you're looking at a guy, and your point about them throwing the ball deep more, I agree with that. But I also think that, as Savan said, and we kind of talked about with the Cowboys, not every throw can be deep. You have to be able to throw the ball deep to open up the short stuff. So imagine if the teams start playing the Chiefs less aggressively or more conservatively to open up that inside part even more. I mean, I watched all the Chiefs snaps when Rasheed was playing, and that dude was always open. Like he caught so many passes over the middle of the field where he is just butt naked open again. Like he is great at separating in the middle of the field. He was ESPN's receiver tracking metrics and his yards after the catch in 2023 as a rookie. Again, when he didn't become a full-time player until about halfway through the year, he was one of the best in all of football. He had one of the highest yards after catch, 99th percentile in all of football as a rookie. And then that number went up last year. His yards per route run and target per route run were both 90th percentile or higher as a rookie. Again, when he wasn't playing much in the beginning of the year. And those numbers both spiked last year. Again, I agree, small sample, but regardless, that's the role he will continue to occupy. And I feel like having Hollywood Brown back healthy, Xavier Worthy as more of a real threat, opens up the offense for him, especially for a team that historically has not wanted to run the ball, but has had to run the ball. I think they would love to see another 5,000 yard season from Mahomes. And a lot of that is going to come underneath. That used to be Travis Kelce's area, is now his area. And Kelsey can show up for the playoffs, which is perfect for him. So
Well, I mean, he might have his retirement tour, so there might be a little bit
uh,
of bounce back
Kelsey's
there.
still going to have a solid year. I have no doubt about that. But I'm saying he's not the target hog, 1,200 yard guy he used to be. He's going to be like late career Antonio Gates, where he comes in when it matters, and they're probably going to limit his workload and really be intentional with how they use him. So again, that all of those targets are open for grabs, up for grabs, because their offense completely changed last year after Rasheed got hurt. Kelsey
Hmm.
was coasting those first 3 games because Rice was so dominant over the middle of the field in the short to middle area that he has historically been great at. And then he got hurt, and Kelsey had to get a lot more involved. They had to rely more on early season Worthy. Hollywood was hurt. It was a mess. So Rasheed, for all intents and purposes, was their offense last year. And that's something that I'm willing to buy into for a 25-year-old with an elite play caller and an elite quarterback.
Offensive coordinator.
No,
Oh,
not offensive coordinator. They are not elite in that area. So, yes, I agree. I heard everything you said. I've also thought through all of it. I negotiated with Cam Thorne for like
Yeah.
7 years on this trade. I thought through every angle. And I also agree that it's very possible we see an early season dip in production while he still kind of gets up to speed. Because, like you said, preseason and non-padded work is all different than getting in the game and seeing at game speed, and people are trying to murder you. Like, I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if we see an early season dip or maybe work him up for a few games, but my team is strong enough that if he's less than 100% for the first couple weeks, that either I don't have to play him or I can absorb the blow of him playing 60% of the snaps instead of 80 or 90. So,
yeah. He's someone you're all right having in your lineup because of the potential,
mhm.
and you're all right waiting on him to get back. Yeah.
Yep. So
Good.
I love Rasheed. I overpaid for him, but you know what? I broke my Chiefs rule for him because he's worth it.
Yeah.
And then the 2026 suspension for his reckless driving incident, we will deal with then.
Tyler,
Um,
anything else from you on Rasheed?
yeah, I mean, I have more thoughts, but we
Yeah.
better get a move. No, no, no. We're just gonna be rehashing the same points different ways,
Are you saying you
probably.
All right.
disagree with our, like, what, do you disagree
No,
with what we said, or you
no,
just
no,
have
no, no,
other
no.
thoughts?
I I see what you guys are saying, but similar to probably how you guys are feeling, I mean, you have your opinion and it's not
Yeah.
gonna change, right?
So you're saying your goal was to sway us. Are you saying that we didn't sway you at all?
Correct.
Oh, that's just that's bad. Come on, man.
All
How's
right.
that bad? It was good discourse, like you said.
I always appreciate good discourse on my team.
It was. All right, let's get into the next one. Now we got our droppable
God, another
category.
spicy one from Tyler.
It's not though.
It's pretty spicy. I have Isaiah Davis, Reed has Savion Williams, and Tyler has AD Mitchell. Reed, why don't we start with you? Why do you think your fourth round rookie, Savion Williams,
I picked him up in
droppable?
free agency after my first wave. I did not
No,
draft him.
he was drafted in the fourth round.
He was a third rounder, actually.
Yeah, third
In real
round.
life?
Yep, real
Yes.
life and NFL third
Oh,
rounder.
even higher. All right. Why is he droppable?
Because my bench is absolutely freaking stacked, and he is like the last person that I would probably get rid of. Because I would have said Keenan Allen, but once he signs, it's probably going to sign to a receiver needy team or as a veteran to help out younger receivers where he could carve out a role. And I feel like if I got rid of Keenan Allen now, then he'd probably only go up in value. So it was either him or Keenan, and I'd probably just go with the rookie that his skill set is just so weird. I just don't really know. Again, with all the Packers pass catchers, I just don't really know what kind of role he can carve out. And given the fact that I already have 4 guys that I like more in my taxi squad, I just don't really know. I like the player, very unique skill set, dynamic with the ball, but he can't go on my taxi because I have at least 4, depending on if I taxi squad Luther Burden or not. So just kind of have to because I love the guys that I have on my bench right now.
Yeah, Savion Williams is fun fact if you didn't know, uh, both at the combine, uh, went to the combine as a receiver and also did the running back drills. So there you go. And Tyler, Adonai Mitchell, this is another spicy one. Let's hear it from you.
Tyler's full of
Okay.
it today.
This no, this pisses me off a little bit because I don't get how this is spicy.
Okay, well,
Are
tell
you
your
asking
side.
us to
Okay.
explain or give us your side?
Okay.
Why should Reed drop Adonai Mitchell?
Okay. Was it not you, Reed, who gave us a stat a few weeks ago
He didn't
that
qualify for that.
what do you mean he didn't
Ooh,
qualify for
He had
that?
more than 20 catches this year.
dang.
He had
Okay,
Man,
yeah.
comfortably more than 20 catches this
he
year.
had 23 catches. That's not
That's pretty
comfortable.
comfortable in my opinion.
It's more than the stat. So
Okay, he had
next,
23 catches for 312 yards. Woo. Okay, this is AD Mitchell is arguably the fifth option in this offense right now,
I don't think
passing.
that's arguable. I think that's pretty solid.
I
Okay,
agree with that one,
so I don't there's not many offenses that I'd want the fifth option in, especially the Colts. This is an
especially the
iffy
Colts.
quarterback situation. You don't know who's starting. Michael Pittman, his injuries are supposedly behind him for now. You just talked about how much you love Josh Downs. Alec Pierce is an elite deep threat, and they just spent their first round pick on Tyler Warren, who I assume they'd like to get going pretty fast here. I just, I, AD Mitchell didn't do a whole lot last year, and I don't really see where he's going to get playing time and get targets to be able to be something useful. I mean, he scored double digits once last year, and it was 12 points. Like, I'm sorry, that just doesn't get me going. That this is he didn't score a touchdown last year. I don't care that he's three targets over the minimum for your stat there or the maximum for your stat. It's I understand you drafted him with the in the 10th round last year in the inaugural draft, but this is just he's he's had his time. He was healthy last year. He's droppable in my opinion.
Well, let me give you the anti-case for him. He's a second round pick last year. So like that alone, for the most part, should at least keep him rosterable. A high second round receiver last year. In the two games that he was a full-time starter, he got 6 targets, which was his 12-point game. He got 6 targets against the Bills. And then the other second one was when he played against the Titans and the he had 1 target, and that was when the Colts threw the ball 11 times that game because they ran for like 400 yards in that game.
Real quick, who was the quarterback in the Bills game? I actually don't know.
That was Flacco. That was Flacco's second game starting.
And the other game?
The other game was Richardson. He threw the ball 11 times and they ran for like 400 yards.
Okay.
Taylor ran for over 200 on his own in that game. Okay, I think it was like 300. Richardson had like 80 yards. Taylor was over 200 in that game, and they ran for like 4 touchdowns. It was wild.
Okay.
But he is a deep ball guy. Alec Pierce obviously did that last year for them. This year, his average depth of target was almost 15 yards, which was 95th percentile. Deep threat guy. But when he was playing, again, targets per route run, 88th percentile. He's an elite separator. His ESPN receiver tracking metric was 93rd percentile. So, yes, the production is minimal this year. But again, Alec Pierce is also in a contract year. Frankly, I think Michael Pittman's kind of cheeks. I watched a lot of Colts football last year. I don't think he's that great. Again, injuries and everything.
But
But
you're not the one throwing the ball or calling the plays, so
no, that's fine. But I'm saying that I think that there is room for someone who's an elite separator and an elite athlete. And again, 1 year removed from being a second round pick, that's something that I would take a flyer on. And B, definitely nobody on the waiver wire is more valuable than him.
uh can I say a hot take?
Yeah, go for it.
I'd rather have Malachi Corley, who's on the waiver
That
wire
is
right now.
just the
That's
worst take you've
okay.
given
That's
today.
bad.
That's saying
Malik,
something.
I think Malachi Corley, one, he definitely fits that stat. And two,
He
I think he
does.
had like
He
three
does.
receptions all season with no
Yeah, he
other.
literally had
Oh, never
three.
mind. They had Devontae and
He's a
Garrett
better
Wilson.
opportunity.
That might be true, but they have
He
Aeneas
has lower
Smith
NFL
now.
draft capital with less production in a worse offense.
Better op. Mm,
Okay, and a comparable low volume offense. That's just bad.
Ah,
That's bad. That right there is a bad take. Three
I'm,
catches last year.
I'm gonna give my quick opinion on this one, then we'll get to me. But AD Mitchell or Tyler was he pretty much fully swayed me there until Reed started talking again.
dude,
So
what?
no, I know.
Just a teeter-totter
Um,
back and forth.
so where I think I'm at on AD is he definitely has the talent, and I don't think he should be on waivers. but he just doesn't have a path right now. And so if this category was should be traded, I think that's where he would fit into. Because I don't think he fits anything that you're trying to do, and I also don't see a path for him to be relevant this year. And it's kind of hard to see one next year. But the draft capital, you can't
Should
argue
be
draft
traded.
capital.
If he's being viewed as droppable by some people in the league, what am I going to get for him?
Um, no, like if he got traded in real life,
Oh, okay, I see.
sorry. If he got traded in real life, I'd be intrigued because he is very talented. There's
Maybe.
just, no, he is. There's just
Okay.
there's no volume and there's really no path to
Barring any
success.
injuries, of course.
Yeah.
Fast does not equal talented, by the way.
No, yeah, I know. He's good at football. He's
His
kind of
biggest
like,
issue is that he struggles to catch, which is a
Right.
problem. He's kind of like Dontavian Wicks, except a better athlete.
well, I was gonna say he's
Stop
kind of
it.
like Luther Burden in the sense that he was projected to go a lot higher than he did, and I think didn't he fall to pick 40? That
I
sounds
think I
right.
think he was 53. I want to no
52, 52.
52.
Okay,
Okay, yeah.
52. But
Never mind. Not a high second round pick.
I remember there
Mid.
was a big thing about him slipping.
But, I mean, it
So,
was him and Worthy that year, and Worthy ran the 40-yard dash and then got drafted higher. So
okay, Tyler, let me riddle me this. Okay, if
wow, we have a Riddles on the pod now.
I uncoincidentally just compared his situation to Luther Burden's. Let's say rookie year plays out for Luther Burden, and he was fifth on the team in targets behind DJ Rome, Colson, and Cole.
Oh God,
Would you drop Luther Burden next year?
No, because he was a higher draft pick, and he was.
yeah, by like 13 picks. They're both second
That
rounders. The
is
hit rate
significant.
between the 39th pick and the 52nd pick
Oh
is
my,
nothing.
that's no,
They
you
were
are
similar.
wrong.
There were similar receivers like drafted. I like AD was probably like the
Last
sixth or seventh, and
last year, Ladd McConkey, pick 34.
Hmm.
Keon Coleman, 33. You're telling me those guys are comparable to pick number 52,
I'm saying
AD
I'm
Mitchell?
saying the hit rate of a late third rounder, which Luther was, he was 39th, is
second
a
round,
what did I say?
that's early second. You said
That's
Sorry,
late
early
third.
second.
a 39th pick, an early second rounder to a mid to late second rounder, the hit rate is probably just about identical. There's not a drop off there from mid to late second round.
It's the same. It's just whatever GMs prefer. So
Yes.
Tyler, they're Luther and AD Mitchell are borderline in the same situation, except for quarterback and play caller and all that stuff, right? So I guess that could be your argument is that
Just
Luther's
don't
in a
know
better
why
off
we're
in a better
why
offense.
why do I have to choose between a made up situation for Luther and a real one for AD
I'm also
Mitchell?
on Tyler's side with this comparison.
Okay, sorry. It just came to mind. All right.
You tell us about
Isaiah,
Isaiah Davis.
yep,
Yeah.
Isaiah Davis. I know, Tyler, what category did you have him in? Sleeper?
Improved, most
Most
improved.
improved.
But
Okay,
also
yeah.
maybe
So
droppable.
yeah, so no, I'm definitely on the droppable side. I know you had a lot of Braylon Allen slander. You called him slow.
Tyler
He
did. I
is
was echoing
slow.
his words.
He
I
is
know
slow.
he's not slow. He ran I know
Oh, Speed
40
isn't a good
time and
athlete. That's what I heard.
a 4.57, which is fine. Would we call David Montgomery slow?
Oh my, just talk
Is
about
David Mont
Isaiah Davis, damn it.
Reed is David Montgomery slow? Have you ever seen him bust a 70-yard run?
I can't say I've watched a lot of Lions football.
Okay. Anyways, I like Braylon Allen. He was the youngest player in the league last year. Um, he going into year two, he's so young, he can develop. He's a running back, he's going to develop.
So young players might have the ability to develop as they get older.
So I don't know. I know Isaiah Davis was also a rookie last year. I really don't know too much about Isaiah Davis, but I have seen some positive things on Twitter about him this offseason for some reason. Um, I'm not buying into the Brees Hall getting traded narrative. I think that's silly. Having Justin Fields and Brees Hall would make a lot more sense than Justin Fields and a timeshare of two sophomore running backs. So just get Isaiah Davis off the team. I know you just traded for him, but just get him off the team.
I mean, I don't fault you for it. I was, like I said, I was just betting on upside. I had Keaton Mitchell. I think Isaiah Davis has a better chance to actually be something this year. Again, whether Brees gets traded or not, he still becomes a handcuff of some kind. So, I mean, like again, late in the year, he was getting more snaps than Braylon when Brees was out. So, again, it's literally just a dart throw. I'd be fine. I mean, there's no guarantee he's on my team by the beginning of the year anyway. But I'm closer to Tyler that I think he's probably more of a most improved than droppable. But I wouldn't fault you for it. My bench is stacked, so there's not a lot of options. You got to make shit up
Yeah,
about AD Mitchell to make something work.
Hey, real quick,
okay.
because I
Yep.
can't remember if I said it or not. Lowest catch rate in the league, by the way.
Oh,
42%.
Yeah, it was
Who
bad.
gives a damn if he's a good athlete?
Yeah,
okay,
he had
okay.
issues catching last year. That was definitely something that got talked about a lot.
Okay.
Okay, real quick, fun game. Let's do a real quick consensus of these three players. Who is the most droppable?
I think we're
I
all probably gonna pick the player that we picked, dummy.
No,
no,
I
I
know,
if
but
I had to agree with you, I'd go to Savion Williams.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, he put him as his most improved. I hope he would not choose him as the most droppable.
Like I'm fine compromising on Williams over Mitchell.
I don't
That's
want to compromise, so let's just
so what was the point of that?
pause.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right, now to the meat and potatoes of the episode. Let's get into the roster breakdown. So first up, gonna start with the quarterbacks. We have Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Joe Milton. Um, yeah, oh, sorry. Anthony Richardson. Okay, yeah, he's on the team too.
He's in the
Tyler,
captain spot, I believe.
something like that. Tyler, why don't we start with you? Why don't you break
Yeah.
down quarterback room from the co-commissioner?
Yeah, Joe Burrow's elite. We know that. We've talked about that. I'm gonna go Dak Prescott and Joe Milton. This is one of my favorite starter handcuffs in the league. I think having Joe Milton as a quarterback handcuff is hilarious in a good way. Like I think he's good. It's just so funny uh to have Joe Milton and Dak Prescott. I don't know. I like Joe Milton. Um Anthony Richardson. I mean, we know the history between you two and your different thoughts here. I am a fence sitter on this one. I'm not. I think part of me thinks he's bad, but part of me kind of wants to see what else is there. So, I mean, totally fine quarterback room. Not the strength of the team, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be when Dak's healthy. I think read that he'll be healthy. I guess I haven't checked,
He is.
but he is healthy. Okay.
Yeah. He just
So,
participated in team stuff this week.
okay. So Joe Burrow and Dak starting games pretty regularly is great to see. And then you have the upside of Richardson as a good QB3 option, maybe the best QB3 option in the league. So, um, yeah, solid all the way around.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott, both pocket passers. Um, Another thing you're not going to want to quote me on, but I'm pretty sure those thresholds I mentioned an episode or two ago are roughly 4,400 yards and 36 touchdowns, leads to high-end fantasy success if you don't have much rushing upside. Joe Milton kind of lucked into the handcuff there. I think it's a fun spot. Dak Prescott's had two season-ending injuries, um, both on his leg. One was a hamstring off the bone, the other one was a broken ankle, broken calf, something like that. So he's a fun option. Um, I think this is a really solid 1-2. I know most people would probably love to have a rushing quarterback that they can put into their lineup, like Drake May. Um, but the type of quarterback that Anthony Richardson is, um, I really like. I do not like Anthony Richardson, the quarterback, but what he tries to do, at least, is very intriguing. Um, I am very much on the side of the fence that he is ass and really bad because that's pretty much all he's shown. He has shown flashes, like everybody brings up that play in week one where he stumbled and then launched the ball to Alec Pierce. Um, I want to see the ones where he's got somebody sitting wide open right over the middle, 3 yards away from the line of scrimmage. Those are the ones that are going to need to be hit for him to be successful, or the ones when they were playing the Bears and he had Michael Pittman on an out route, wide open, nobody near him, sails it, interception. See way too much of that. Got to see the consistency from his throwing, but the rushing upside is definitely there. Uh, there is a 1% chance that his ceiling's Justin Fields. Um, what do you read?
I disagree with Tyler. I do think this is a strength of my team. It's not the strength, obviously, but it's
Yeah,
definitely my
that's
second best room on my team, I think. I tend to, or I do agree, like having two pocket passers. And again, for all intents and purposes, Tyler said it well. Anthony Richardson is my quarterback three, and he is an elite quarterback three because of the upside that he offers. I'll have to make some tough decisions come week one. We'll see what I do, but um, Burrow, when not a lot has to be said there. Top five at the floor, top 10 quarterback. I have stack with my best receiver. Like that's locked and loaded. Um, Dak is, I'm really excited. Like last year, he did not look great. The offense was very clearly less than it could have been. I think George Pickens was a huge addition, as we've talked about a little bit already, opens up the offense a lot for them and no real investments in the running back position. So I think this could be like a 2022 Cowboys offense where they're just airing it out all game. And I'd love to see that because that benefits me. Like I don't think there's any reason why like I don't think there's any reason to say Dak's washed. Like he's 32, but I like him still. I agree. Not a lot of rushing upside anymore given his age and injury history, but I hope I don't ever have to start Joe Milton because at that point my season probably isn't going very well. So, but yeah, Richardson's a perfect quarterback three, a lot of upside. I don't care what he does as an NFL quarterback as long as he keeps playing and he's an elite fantasy option when he plays. So I got nothing to say about that. There's a really strong room for me and one that I didn't even consider trading any of my top three guys this offseason because I felt so good about who I had and the depth that I had there that I know at times last year, including the championship game, I was out of quarterbacks due to injury. So I feel good about the depth I have and feel like it's definitely a strength for me moving forward.
Yep. I know you said you might have some tough decisions week one, but there is a very real possibility that the Colts just make that decision for you. So,
I very much doubt that.
okay,
I
well,
would be very surprised if he's not starting week one due to anything other than injury.
we shall see. We have a long way to go till the season. So, get on to the quarterback question. Here we have more likely to Joe Burrow as the quarterback one or Anthony Richardson starts 15 games in 2025. Tyler, what's more likely?
pretty easy for me. Richardson starts 15 plus games. They have a lot invested in Richardson at this point, so even if it's gonna fail, uh, I'm sure Chris Ballard and company will go down with the ship and Richardson starting. I mean, you know what DJ is at this point, so after 15 plus games, I think we'll have a pretty good idea of who Richardson is.
Good answer. Reed?
Yeah, I don't think this is even a question. I'm a huge Joe Burrow fan, but the lack of rushing upside, like he just, I'm not saying he doesn't because he could. Like again, we all talked about like he could have a 5,000 yard season with 45 touchdowns and like it wouldn't be that surprising this year. But like if you just look since 2021, the no pure passers like Burrow have been quarterback one. The closest was Justin Herbert in 2021 when he had 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns, and three rushing touchdowns. So, like, you're looking at a one of the best passing seasons ever, assuming, the rest of the NFL's quarterbacks perform as they're expected to, like a Herculean effort for him to be the QB1, which is very possible. But as I've said with Kenneth Walker, past injuries do not always predict future injuries. Very confident Richardson will be starting week one if he's not hurt already. And I don't see any reason why he can't start 15 plus games because even if he's only marginally better, he's still winning games for the Colts. So easy, clear one for me there with Richardson.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Joe Burrow finishes as the
I'm
QB1
not
now.
surprised.
Yeah, no. I'll just touch on the Richardson sign first. I just think uh he'll either get hurt or benched, and I think there's no possible other outcome. So let's go to Joe Burrow.
No possible other outcome.
Let's just go to Joe Burrow. So, well,
He's over
along the
500 in his career in the NFL as a starter, right?
that's fine. Along the lines, so let's compare him to Justin Fields. Justin Fields' career high in games is 15. And
Hmm.
so
I forgot. Is this inclusive to 15 or is it more than 15?
it's, I would
Is
say
it 15,
15.
16, 17 or 16, 17?
15 total games
Okay.
played. Yeah. That's Justin Fields' career high, and he has four, I guess he had 3 years. Richardson's already had two injuries.
Three
So,
injuries, actually. Actually, four
okay.
injuries.
Well, let's touch on the Joe Burrow side. This whole offseason for the Bengals has been, how can I keep Joe Burrow happy? And what did they do? They signed his two best friends to long-term extensions. Um, they didn't bring in another high draft capital running back. Although Chase Brown is solid, Joe Burrow's the franchise. I'm calling a 5,045 season from Joe Burrow. He As long as he stays healthy, the offense showed out last year. The defense didn't get much better. So I think Bengals games are going to be super fun to watch this year. And I think they're going to be super high scoring. He's going to be throwing the ball all over the place. He's got two really good receivers. As long as everybody stays healthy, I think Joe Burrow could definitely have an all-time season this year.
Feels like they could be one of the most fantasy friendly offenses in NFL history.
Definitely. All right. Let's get into the running backs. So at the top, we got Chuba Hubbard, Kenneth Walker, both acquired via trade. He then, after the rookie draft, picked up Rashard Smith with one of his top priorities. Got Isaac Guerendo in the inaugural draft last year. Isaiah Davis acquired recently in a trade, one-for-one swap. Notably drafted Jonathan Brooks over Rashee Rice, as he mentioned, and also claimed Taj Brooks with one of his waiver priorities. Um,
Uh,
Interesting room.
I will start this one if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a really sad room. This is not the
Very sad.
room that looks like a championship contending team. To be fair, the depth, like the room as a whole, is very bad. But I'll put my two starters up against most of the rest of the league. Like I feel like I'm very confident in the value that I have at the top two. But the rest of it, I all these guys could be off my team by the end of the year, and like it wouldn't be that surprising. Okay, I mean obviously minus the taxi guys because there's no reason to drop them, but yeah, that's tough. Brooks is going to be on an IR slot all year. They already announced that. Brooks and Brashard Smith are going to be taxi squad all year, so like I'm basically down to four running backs here. Um, so yeah, needless to say, I think there's going to be some more moves here before the season for me. Not necessarily now. I'm not going to let Sumner fleece me for Rico Dowdle, but I will say that I would be surprised if this was my running back room for week one.
Yeah, it is. To touch on that fleecing, and it's funny, came to me about that Mr. Rico Dowdle saying to add any value, Reed wants him. So I just thought that was funny. But yeah, pretty sad room overall. Tyler, what are your thoughts on this room?
Oh man. Uh I like Chuba. Kenneth is fine. The only other player I guess I'll talk about a little bit is Guerendo. I don't think necessarily he's the surefire backup to CMC. We've seen the 49ers rotate backups from year to year in season as well. And I know Guerendo had some success last year, but even if McCaffrey is injured at points this year, they also added Jordan James, and so there's potential for him to get carries as well as Guerendo. So, but that's the only I just bring up Guerendo because I know Reed and I had discussed him
Hmm. No,
recently.
Guerendo, nobody seems to value Guerendo that much, and I think he's probably undervalued almost to a point by the rest of the league because while yes, they drafted another running back, like why would they ditch him? He performed incredibly well in the games that he played for CMC last year, and from a fantasy perspective, he was averaging over 15 points a game in games he was the starter. Like there doesn't seem to be a lot of reason for me aside from his injury history, which he does have one. Like I don't really see why they would just ditch him for the next fourth round running back. He was also a fourth round running back in 2023, so or 2024. So I do agree. I think he's, obviously he's nothing more than a handcuff at this point, but I think he's an elite handcuff option compared to, or sorry, when you take into account the offensive structure that he's going to be playing in, which is a very fantasy friendly offense, and the running back he's behind, who historically has had injury issues as recently as last year. But injury history does not predict the future injuries, so handcuff nonetheless.
Yeah, and knowing Reed, this will not be everybody after Kenneth Walker on this list definitely could be off the team um, sooner rather than later. Knowing Reed, well, I guess not the taxi guys, but you get my point. Knowing Reed, I
Jonathan
know
Brooks is a team captain for the heart he shows on my team.
okay. Well, he doesn't have too much draft capital to work with, but he's going to be able to sling a deal.
I
Just,
have the seventh most draft capital in the league, buddy. Did you see the
anyways,
team summary page?
no. Um, Lost my train of thought. He's going to be able to sling a deal. I wouldn't expect a big name, just somebody that he feels all right with being as a third option if he had to start him in a pinch. So look for Reed to make a move sometime within the next 3 or 4 months to shore up this running back core.
If anyone's looking to sell low on a running back, let me know.
Yes. Moving into the wide receivers. Now, this is the bread and butter of Reed's team. This is what he's banking on. This is what he has put all of his resources into after losing to me in the championship. He didn't have enough star power, so he said, how do I defeat Del Monkas? Let me get some receivers. So at the top, acquired Drake London via trade last season. Got Garrett Wilson in a trade this offseason. Jamar Chase from the inaugural draft. Now it seems like he got him out of value. Overpaid a little bit for Rashee Rice, but I'm on the same page there. And then you got a bunch of hopefuls after that. A.D. Mitchell, we talked about. Jawan Jennings, we talked about. Josh Downs, we talked about. Keenan Allen, we talked about. Luke Burton, we talked about. Savion Williams, we talked about. And Ty Felton, who to me at this point just seems like a Jalen Naylor replacement at best, or maybe a future Jordan Addison replacement, depending on how that whole contract thing plays out in the next year or so. So uh, I'll give my take on this first. Um, Very top heavy, also has some depth, and also has some high upside guys. This is the best receiver room in the league. You got Drake London and Garrett Wilson and Jamar Chase, who all three are locked and loaded number one options. Both should see 150 plus targets. Um, the only questions would be quarterbacks, like Reed was talking about earlier with me about Justin Fields for Garrett Wilson. Good thing for Garrett Wilson, he's the only one who can catch passes there. Drake London, I have Michael Penix, so I'm counting on a year two jump from him, but he is the surefire number one. They also don't have a lack of playmakers there. They still have Kyle Pitts, who is going into his sophomore breakout. Uh,
Shout out Swirly.
yep. They have Mooney, who seems like a value at this point. They also have Ray McLeod, shout out number 34, wide receiver. We love to see it. And then you got Bijan. So with a great offensive line. Um, I like the situation for him. Jamar Chase, we don't need to talk about. Just won the Triple Crown. Then you got guys you can throw in the flex, Jawan Jennings, Josh Downs. We'll see where Keenan Allen signs. He could be ring chasing. He could want to go be a mentor. We'll see.
I'd love for him to
Luther,
go back to the Chargers.
yeah. Luther, we'll see how that shakes out. I could see him being anywhere from the fifth option to the second option. So, Tyler, what are your thoughts on Reed's wide receivers?
Yeah, I'm going to echo that this is the best wide receiver room in the league. It's pretty clear to me that you have your starters and you have your solid depth pieces aside from A.D. Mitchell there.
Not again.
Um, there's no reason, I guess, barring any extremely bad injury luck, Reed will have his wide receiver spots and flex spots filled every week. The only difficulty is just making sure you get the right guys in there. But I think he should not have a problem with those spots at all this year. So, really scary part of this team.
Reed, what are your thoughts about your own receiver core?
I made all these moves hoping to get to this episode and hearing you guys tell me I have the best receiver room in the league. So mission accomplished. I find it funny how we've mentioned every single person on this slide right now, except for Ty Felton and Drake London before this. Like everybody else has been mentioned at least once because they're just the driver of my team. So yeah, I think I got a bunch of studs here. Highest ceiling, really high floor. I this is what gives me the wet dreams at night is this room.
Oh,
Invite me to your bed. All right, let's
I've
get
seen your
on.
receiver room. I'm not inviting you anywhere.
Okay. Over under 3.5 top 20 wide receivers from Reed's team.
all right, now go back so I can thank you.
Yep. I'll start this one off. This is tough. I am going to
We're
take,
going total fantasy points, by the way, not points per
yep,
game.
over under 3.5. I will take the under 3.5. Um, with the question mark being, ooh, I don't know. Jamar Chase and Garrett Wilson, um, locked in. Let's say Drake London's locked in too. I would say the question mark is Rashee Rice, just based on how the first month of the season goes. If they want to slow play him, if they want to, if let's say Jalen Royals shows out and he can do Rashee's job better right away because he's healthy, they just ease Rashee because they're obviously a contender. They don't need Rashee to be Rashee in week one and even to be Rashee in week 19, 20, and so on. So I'll take the under just with the easy path for there being over. Reed?
I mean, obviously, I'm going to take the over here.
Okay.
Jamar is a lock. London feels like a lock. Garrett Wilson feels like I don't want to say Garrett like London and Chase. I would give 90+% chance. Wilson, I think, is probably 60 to 70% chance, and then I just need one of Rasheed, Jennings, or Downs to get it done. Or I mean anyone else, but I'd be surprised if it was anybody else. And at that point, I feel really confident that one of those three is going to pull through. So I'll take the over, but not necessarily like stamp of like astounding approval. So I'll take the over though.
Definitely. Tyler, you
Pretty
come to a
easy on
decision.
what?
Have you came to a decision?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy under for
Oh,
me.
what the hell, man.
I
Easy under.
It is easy. Like just thinking about injury luck. Like, do we really think London, Wilson, Chase, Rice will all have perfectly healthy seasons? I don't. So there's so many variables here that honestly, I think in my mind, a better line is 2.5. Not trying to like
Would you
crap
take
on
the
you.
under on that?
Um,
If you take the
yeah,
under on that after saying I have the best receiver room in the league, we're gonna it's
no, no, no,
something's
no,
not
no,
adding
no.
up.
I think the line is 3, so that's why. I mean,
Oh,
3. Okay, 2.5, 3.5, 3 still in the middle, whatever. Uh, but yeah, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I'll say under. I think it's around 3. I think it's 3.
We are clipping that for the end of the year.
What clipping
Clipping both of
what's
your guys' answers saying under on that one.
I
I'm
did
I'm
feel like
changing my yes to an astounding stamp of approval yes now.
I
okay.
said I see a path for it to be over.
I just I okay, if I'm lower on Rashi Rice, then yeah, it's gonna be
But I feel like you're discounting the possibility that I have two other guys who have the potential to do that. Like, yeah, if you're just looking at those four and you're like, yeah, are all four of those going to be top 20 receivers? I'd say no too. But the probability of any of those guys coming up with it, I feel like is high. I mean, Jennings was 23 last year, and he
yeah,
didn't really come on until Ayuk got hurt.
right. That's what I'm saying. It's pretty unpredictable. Like anyone, not anyone, but there's yeah, injuries are unpredictable. So I don't 3.5's a high line, and I don't necessarily think
Okay,
injuries would help the case here.
we're clipping that. Come
Okay.
back to that.
All right. Let's get into the tight end. So this is it's a room for sure. At the top, we got Jonnu Smith. We've talked about he was a free agent acquisition early in the 2024 season. He recently required Harold Fandon, which seemed to be a value. The young tight end out of Bowling Green, got in the early fourth. Jake Ferguson, we have talked about, drafted him in the inaugural draft, infamously traded up one spot ahead of me because he knew I was going to take him there.
I had the
And
stack.
you also knew I was going to take him there and traded one spot ahead of me, no?
But yeah, I'm not denying that, but I'm saying I didn't trade ahead of him
Okay.
because you were going to take him. I traded ahead because it made sense for me.
So, but everything I said was true.
Yeah, I didn't dispute that part.
Okay, perfect.
I
So
even
you're a
agree with
liar.
the notoriously part.
Noah Gray, I believe you recently acquired, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Yes. Somebody recently dropped, was it
Tyler.
Me
Tyler? Tyler recently
for
dropped Noah.
Conqueror.
Yeah, for
Not
Chig
directly.
Okonkwo.
That was a
Okay, that
result, not the
yes,
process.
correct.
All right. Noah Gray on your team. Uh, Tyler, take it away.
I think this room will be good enough. I'm not gonna say it's okay. Sorry, Johnny Smith's a beast. I'm not. I was gonna see. I'm still sleeping on Johnny Smith myself. I think this is a good room. You gotta hope that he carries on his production. I think he will. If something happens to Johnu or his production falls off a bit, I think Ferguson is a great backup for that. And Fannin is like a perfect taxi squad player. So I think this is a good room with some upside, high floor with some upside too.
I'll go next. I don't think it's a high floor. I don't see Janu repeating top five season.
He doesn't
Um,
have to though. I mean,
yeah,
like
no,
top 10, top 12, that's perfectly good.
I don't see him being a 110 target guy
He
in his
doesn't
age
have to
30s.
be.
I'm I'm not arguing with you. I'm giving my opinion.
Okay, okay, sorry.
Jeez, fuck off. Janu. I lost my train. Let's just move on. Harold Fannin. I don't think he's going to be relevant this year. Probably should just stay on taxi squad if that's where he's at. Ferguson, I'll get into more in a little bit. Noah Gray, I guess somewhat of a tight end handcuff to Travis Kelce. In my opinion, tight end's the least important position in fantasy football. I do not care if we're in a tight end premium league. Uh, I would much rather I would personally be all right with my worst position being tight end. So this is definitely a fine room. Um, the good thing about your room is you don't, or I wouldn't expect too much. So whatever is given is added bonus. So Reed, how do you like your tight end room?
You might as well just spit on Tyler's roster by saying the tight end room doesn't matter.
No,
Well,
seriously.
my if you remember my hot take, it was your team would be better without
That's
Trey
fair. You are
McBride.
consistent at least. I have nothing really new to say. I'm happy with how little I've invested in this room, and I agree that I think the floor is pretty high. Like I feel pretty confident that at least one of Jonnu and Ferg will be a back end tight end one at the least. I don't necessarily, again, I agree. I don't think either of those guys really have top five upside per se, but I do like that, again, the floor is there for those two. And I do tend to agree that if I can get like middling production, I'm fine with that. I didn't, like I said, I have invested very little in this room. I think Fannon's a great taxi squad guy, and Gray just signed an extension with the Chiefs. So, yeah, I'm happy with where it's at for how little I've invested in it.
Not the worst room, not the best room. Nothing to be mad about with this one. Tight end question. Who scores more fantasy points? Jonnu Smith from the Miami Dolphins, Jake Ferguson from the Dallas Cowboys. Reed, who scores more points?
This is tough. I honestly, I view them very, very similarly. But given that Johnu just came off a top five season, I feel like I probably have to go Johnu here. But I also, honestly, this could be like 50-50. Like I'd be perfectly fine with either, but I'll lean Johnu.
Okay. Tyler?
Clearly Johnu for me.
Clearly Jonnu for you. Okay. Well,
Tyler's
I'm
full
gonna
of stamp, like hot, not hot takes, but he's just into all the takes he has this time.
It's
he's
good to
decisive.
be
Decisive.
convicted, I was gonna say.
Yes.
Conviction. And I have some conviction here. It's gonna be Mr. Jake Ferguson.
Uh,
Clearly.
Savon's
So
always been a big Ferg guy.
love Ferg. Let's get into the hot takes. From me, my hot take, Jake Ferguson finishes the 2025 fantasy football season as a top three tight end. Now, I'm not talking about those tight ends you're thinking about. I'm talking about fantasy football, mean inline blockers and pass catchers. Jake Ferguson, born December
No,
2nd,
we're not doing
9
that.
1997. 27 years, going to be 27 years old. He's 26 right now. Jake Ferguson, 3 years ago, I believe, I was in on late round tight end dart throws, one of my staples. I hit. All right. He may not be a touchdown guy, right? He was the number two option for Sir Dak Prescott. What did Dak Prescott do? He broke his leg. What did Dak Prescott do? He tore his bone off his hamstring. He did something on his hamstring. CeeDee Lamb has been screaming nonstop. I need somebody else out here so I'm not getting cracked over the middle of the field. What'd they do? They went and got George Pickens. What does that do for Jake Ferguson? Oh, CeeDee Lamb's covered. Oh, let's go to George. Oh, George is covered. Well, look, Dak, I'm your only option. Throw it to me. I'm wide open in the end zone. I'm putting a stamp on it. Jake Ferguson, over 100 targets, over 70 receptions, over 800 yards, and double-digit touchdowns. It's Jake Ferguson. It's Jake Ferguson season, baby, and I'm here for it. Dallas country, let's ride.
That was quite an
All right,
impassioned speech you just gave there.
yeah, that was off the top. Any discourse from that?
I don't know if the stats you listed get him to a top three tight end, but I appreciate the the enthusiasm.
I'm not with it, but I appreciate your monologue there.
I also don't see it, but I hope it happens.
All right, let's see. Reed's hot take.
A little bit of a self glaze for me here, but
Yeah. Reed's team will have two 4,500 yard passers, two 1,200 yard rushers, and six one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll give the floor to you because this is garbage.
I don't think the passer one is very. I don't think that's really kind of a. I mean, it's a hot take to say that two guys will go for 4,500 yards, but I don't think either of us would be. Any of us would be shocked if both those guys threw for 4,500 yards. That's fair, I
Yeah.
think. We get kind
Yeah,
of
I'm
more
not.
outrageous as we go down, I think. Chuba
Yes.
Hubbard ran for 1,195 yards last year and didn't play the last 2 weeks. So again, kind of more just like I think he's going to repeat what he did last year. And obviously, I'm high on Kenneth Walker. I think if he's healthy, perfectly natural for him to be that quality of a rusher. The 1,000 yard receivers, this one, I could have just put this as my hot take. Rasheed, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Jamar Chase, Josh Downs, Juwan Jennings. All of them hitting 1,000 yards. All of them, sorry, four of those hit 1,000, almost hit 1,000 yards last year. Garrett did, Drake London did, Jamar did. Juwan Jennings was 25 yards short, and he got ejected in the final game in the first quarter. So, not 1,000 yard season, but essentially 1,000 yard season. I'm all in on Josh Downs, as you can see, and I honestly don't think 1,000 yards is that hard for Rasheed to clear. He had 927 his rookie year. And again, he didn't become a full-time player until a good chunk of the year. So as crazy as this looks, I don't think it's as crazy as it sounds.
Tyler, I'll let you respond to this garbage first.
Wait, sorry. But before we move on, of the okay, sorry, no, actually I lied. You guys go first, and then I'll ask my question.
Tyler?
I know what you're gonna ask, and I have my answer. Uh, I mean, this is like the picture perfect fantasy season. It's just it's not this lucky for anyone, so hot take, and so I respect it.
It's not this
But
lucky for anyone. Do you know how many players Cevan had on IR last year?
That
it's
has nothing to do with
Zero.
this.
but
There is
it's
luck.
like injury luck and good performance, and
That's fair.
that's a really tough roll of the dice.
For me, I don't think anybody's arguing with the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks, I mean, Joe Burrow almost had 5,000 last year. Dak's a two-time 4,500 yard thrower, so could definitely see that. The other one, you're asking two running backs to have career highs rushing yards, and then the 6,000 yard receivers. I mean, the Colts added Tyler Warren, and their leading receiver was
Alec Pierce,
Alec Pierce last year, who was under 900.
840 something, I believe.
Yeah, there's just I can see a world where four do pretty easily, and but then asking two non-number or yeah, two more non-number one options on their team to do it just seems like a huge stretch. And you probably should have. Or are you counting tight ends?
Yeah, but I don't expect either of those two to get to 1,000. But I mean, they're
Okay,
they're in the pool of players that
they
could do it.
they, they do count. I just think the really after the quarterbacks, the other two are just they're not happening. But this is why it's your hot take, your garbage hot take.
I I really don't think any of them are controversial except for Josh Downs. Juwan Jennings was 25 yards short last year. Rashee Rice
He's the,
was 75 yards short his rookie year. Everybody else on my receiving core has done it. Chuba was 5 yards short last year. Kenneth Walker is probably the other hottest take. But again, his is almost entirely health dependent, I would guess. I mean, his rookie year, he was at 1,050 yards. So again, if you want to disagree with the Josh Downs part, like don't think of it as Josh Downs, think of it as Josh Downs or Luther Burden or Ferg or Johnny, whatever you want. Like I really don't think this is as hot as it sounds. It's all just dependent on injuries. Like almost certainly someone's going to get hurt. That's kind of been my luck in this league so far. But if everyone's healthy in the hottest of universes where I'm running hot with luck, I don't think this is that outlandish.
I just want to respond to that Jawan Jennings part real
Let's hear it.
quick. He's okay, so they have George, they have Ayuk back, and they have their
Maybe.
first round receiver from last year. Where if you were to bet if all four of them are healthy, plus CMC is going to get 100 targets.
Hmm.
So that's five players. Where would you put Jawan Jennings if everybody plays 17
Like in
games?
terms of total targets.
Tar yes. Who would he be
Okay, well,
behind?
first off, Ayuk's health is still up in the air, which is a huge part of this.
Okay, so
I'd probably put him
sure.
third, maybe second.
A
He'll definitely get
after
out targeted by Kittle.
you don't
I
okay.
definitely think he out targets Pearsall this year. Ayuk will be completely health dependent, but given that the last report I saw said mid-season, and if not then working him up to that point. So I think he out targets Ayuk, and then it's kind of him versus CMC. So
Okay. Well,
like I don't think it's controversial to say I would take Jennings over Pearsall straight up this year. Some people are
well,
Pearsall guys. I'm not a Pearsall guy. I'm just a big Jennings guy.
that's fair. Did you have you say you had a question?
Yeah, but I guess we kind of answered it. It was which of all the players I listed, who is least likely to hit it, but I'm sure you're all going to say Josh Downs, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Or Kenneth Walker, since you guys are haters.
I guess I would say Luther Burden if that's an option.
He is one of the options, but I
Well,
guess
if you're
you're
asking
kind of a
least
Bears
likely
hater.
to. No, I just
No, he's not. I'm not
yeah,
counting on him. If he gets like 600 or 700 this year, I'd be happy
that's a stretch.
to hit that many yards.
Yeah, I think he'll be the fourth. Like honest opinion,
Well,
I
yeah,
think he'll be the fourth option this
that's why I
year.
said if he hits that, I'll be happy.
Okay. Well,
Tyler, you've been gassing up your hot take for the second episode in a row. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Tyler's hot take. Luther Burden will have a 40 burger on Reed's bench during the season. Ooh, this is a good take. I like this one. Tyler, let's hear it from your point of view.
Yeah, it was pretty, when I came up with this, I felt pretty happy with it. And I think this speaks to two things, and it's that, I'm super high on Luther myself. Obviously, Reed was too. But I think it speaks to what I think he can do, but also it might be, a bear awaiting to be woken or something like that. With
That's not
Luther.
fair.
You know what I'm trying to say though, is like I
Yeah,
think
he's
Luther,
hibernating.
he has the potential to pop off during any game, and it's not, something maybe Reed will have foreseen coming that week or anyone to that matter. So I think he has a chance to explode. A 40-point game would probably be 180 plus yards, at least two touchdowns. New offense with Ben Johnson, Caleb looking to take that step forward, like we've talked about so many times. Let's get weird. Let's see if Luther can, make really have a big game here. And I think if he did, it'd really be a coming out party for him, and this would obviously catapult his stocks. So I think this is a fun take.
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind was just a vision. I already see it happening. It's going to be double digit weeks, week 12. DJ's going to get ruled out. Reed's going to text me, what do you think about Luther? Because all season he'll be a 50, 60% snap guy, and I'll be like, oh, he'll probably just take DJ more snaps, so start him if you want. He's gonna leave him on the bench, and exactly he's gonna go 7 for 150 and two, and Reed's gonna text me, God damn it.
Well,
And
7 for 1. That'll only be 30 some points. Promise you.
okay, well he's gonna get his carries. Another 3 for 40 and a touchdown.
Sure.
Anyways, you get it. I just see that happening. Reed.
My first thought went to Kadarius Toney dropping 10 catches for
Mm,
189 yards in his first week five of
yes.
his rookie year, and that would be my thought. But I don't think Luther Burden is much of a problem. I love the take, very creative, and if he does have a 40-point game, I'd say it's pretty likely he's on my bench because if he builds up to a 40-point game, then I'll have already won the championship at that point. So I like the take. I can't wait for it to happen because I kicked myself over the Taysom Hill game last year when he was on my bench. So yeah, I can't wait to be distraught over this when it happens.
And the
Yeah.
Drew Lock game when he was on your bench.
No, he wasn't even on my team. I dropped him for Flacco.
Okay, even worse.
I have no regrets about that. The process on that game was perfectly fine.
Yeah, it cost you a championship though.
Yep.
Drew Lock actually wouldn't have won me that game. If I played Jonnu and Drew Lock, then I would have won. The lineup I had Saturday night. Trent messed up
Uh,
his waiver with Drew Lock, so or Flacco, so I had to play Flacco.
I
fair
was
enough.
not expecting any Drew Lock discourse on this episode.
Big Drew Lock fan. Just kidding, I'm a hater.
All right, getting into the season predictions. So I'm a little wonky here. Um, like I said, I got Reed in a favorite. He does have a tendency to miss playoffs though. So
Not here. I'm
just
one for one in this league.
in general, you have a tendency to miss playoffs with good teams. You have a good team. Let's see what happens.
That's okay.
100%.
Well, okay. No.
If I miss the playoffs, you can start calling me James.
I might need to start calling you that elsewhere. Anyways, Reed's got himself at 80%. That seems more on par. Same with Tyler, around 72%. I've got him making the championship just above 50%, which is way too high. Um, I don't really know how all this statistic stuff goes, so I was just doing numbers that sounded good in my head. Reed and Tyler, way more understandable, 28% about a quarter% chance, aka about 25% chance. Yeah. Uh, any thoughts on your guys' odds and everything?
Yeah, real quick. How can you say, Reed's got a history of missing playoffs. We'll see what happens, but also have him at 100%.
Because like Reed said, he's 100% in this league. Had a
Oh,
good team last year and made the playoffs, and his good teams in other leagues missed the playoffs. Uh,
okay.
there's a saying for this. It's like all good things come to an end before
That's
they're true.
I don't know if that applies here even a little bit.
I also don't know if that's a
I
saying.
I don't have much to add on my percentages. This is, like I said, one of the best teams in the league. Um, I
Tyler, if those odds are for a team that's not a favorite, I don't want to see what obscene odds you put on whoever's ahead of me.
Yeah,
what do you mean?
28, a quarter of the time I'm a top two team, and you're saying that I'm not a favorite for the league.
That's right.
What I'm saying is I can't wait to see what obscene odds you have for the number one team if they're that much better than
Well,
my
it'll
odds.
be higher than 28.
It better be substantially higher to say we're not even in the same tier.
Don't worry, you'll see in time.
It better look like Savon's odds over there if we're not even in the
oh,
same tier.
Jeez.
you don't want to see my odds for that team. All right.
I
This has been a great episode, fellas. Do you either of you two have some final thoughts?
Oh man, you guys might kick me off after this episode.
I
No,
mean,
it's
just the AD
all
Mitchell
been good.
discourse, just blasphemous.
I guess we were likely to dispute on Reed's team this episode.
I don't know. It feels like we all kind of came to the same consensus.
Yeah,
Actually,
that
I
Rasheed
lied.
is
You gave
good.
me 100% playoff odds, and then Tyler called me not a favorite. So I guess we really didn't agree that much.
What do you mean? That's good odds.
That's great odds. Too good odds, some might say.
Unrealistic.
Okay, from my perspective, I think we all came away understanding that Rasheed Rice is locked and loaded. Jake Ferguson is locked and loaded. Anthony Richardson is not good at football,
He's good at
and
fantasy
he
football, though.
and Adonai Mitchell should
Be on the waiver wire.
probably. Well, Reed, last thing.
Last thoughts are I'm ready for August already.
Yeah, same. It's gonna be a long off season, fellas, but that'll be it from us, fellas. Episode 9 of Likely to Dispute has came to an end. We'll see you on the next one.